Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful July the 3rd, 2020. Ronald Deportes, Big C is still doing his thing. Actually, I guess he didn't get enough. Now he's going up to Mount Rushmore, where he also wants to watch POTUS give another speech, Big C. It's all fair and love award. We love this great country. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go buy yours, test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, all around the world, on the beautiful 4th of July holiday weekend, just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be looking at a still picture of Big C software at 11 War. I want to say, taking the Big C pause, but I will never pause on the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones get help. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. They really do a good job in helping people. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams are trying to do it too. And you can watch TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. For those of you looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can see of opportunities that are happening in real estate. So a lot of people are really getting ready for this beautiful 4th of July holiday weekend coming up. Isn't it amazing that 4th of July is going to be on a Saturday? Wouldn't it be great if it was on a Friday? Well, people took the day off anyway, so I guess it didn't really matter. A lot of people taking the day off, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. And a little bit of news going on in the world of sports. The Seattle Mariners, they're hoping that a 6-man rotation will pay off going forward. The Rangers open summer camp at home without Martin. There are 31 Major League Baseball players and 7 staff that test positive for COVID-19. But as they say, the show must go on, hoping that those gentlemen can make a good recovery. NFL football, there's some things going on to change the name of the Washington Redskins. It's called when corporate sponsors pull out, Big C. That means they're going to change some names. It's been happening at universities. And also the Washington Redskins, Snyder, he likes money, and in corporations that sponsor your stadium, they're saying, hey, if you don't change that name, if you don't change that mother blanket name, the great Joe Rogan, they're going to pull out some sponsorship. So the Washington Redskins are going to change their name. A lot of things going on in the world of sports. And there's even a player, a top prospect, he picks Howard University, HBCU, over UCLA, Kentucky, and Memphis. So things are changing. Will that be more of a sea change for players going to HBCU programs, or will it just be one great player and then back to things as usual? We'll see what happens in the world of sports. I love so much about our country, and even though not everybody likes the attitude or the environment of the enmity that's gone on, comes right out of the house of the White House. A lot of enmity. You'll if you have the chance to pay attention to what happened at Mount Rushmore. You know, there's always talk about how do we make our country great? How do we make it greater? And we all have to put that in mind. But just talking about some sports teams that are getting back into the swing of things, I want to make sure that everybody understands now 8 Secret Service agents have tested positive for COVID-19. They are quarantined in Arizona, and that's because they followed POTUS. You can't even keep your own house safe. How are you going to keep other people safe? Now POTUS is looking to spread, if that makes sense to you, his message to Mount Rushmore. And they even had chairs that were strapped together, which is against fire marshal's warnings. If there's a fire that broke out or anything that broke out where people had to get away, you can't even separate your chair from the person sitting next to you. And so that's how they wanted it. POTUS got his chance to do it the way he wanted it done. And people are willing to die. They're willing to die, Big C, for POTUS. I mean, isn't that crazy? So no social distancing. Masks were not required. Chairs were strapped together in front of Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and Abraham Lincoln. That POTUS says that he was even a better president than Abraham Lincoln. But it seems, even with some of the vitriol and blaming somebody else, it seems like a lot of decent-minded Americans are turning away from POTUS. If you believe in polls, people still have to get out and vote. But I know this is a great opportunity to let people know there's been over 129,000 fatalities with COVID-19. And they had about 7,000 fans. I don't know if you call them fans, but spectators, allegedly, at the Mount Rushmore today. But it's all fair and love and war. People do what they want to do. Some people decide not to wear a seatbelt. You can't force them. You can only give them a ticket. I even know that some people decide to smoke cigarettes, even though it says, the warning label says that substances may be known to cause cancer. People do that anyway. And you can't stop people from wanting to die. They have a right to die if they want to. It's just on how they choose it. But everybody, that's why we live in America. It is the land of the free and the home of the brave. I just want to make sure, I know this is 4th of July weekend. I really want that $100 million. I've been trying to win at the lottery, but I want to do what Joe Rogan did. He says, welcome to the Mother Blanket Show, Big C, and he's getting that contract coming up. It's all fair and love and war. But that was a story in the Washington Post. And it was actually on CNN, a story in the Washington Post from May 27, 2020. But it's all fair. Everybody do what you got to do. Get the money. Get that mother blanket money, Big C. But I don't feel comfortable using profanity, even if that's what it takes to get there. Maybe I'll change my mind. I may have a moment of intuitive insight, Big C. I may have an intuition change. But it's all fair, and people do what they got to do. NFL style, Big C style, the 2020 NFL calendar for teams and players to consider in this COVID-19 2020 season. We know they've already canceled preseason games because they're trying to get ahead of the spread, or maybe they're just trying to push things off. I think over 100,000 people in the last 2 days in the United States have tested positive for COVID-19, and POTUS, President Trump, has said it's all under control. By April, we'll all be in the churches, and it will just float away. He said that's all fair, though. People know what they got to do. So the deadline for any club is July 15th for a designated franchise player to sign such a player to a multi-year contract extension. Mid-July training camps, we don't know what's going to happen now. We really just don't know now that they've pushed back they've cut off preseason. First they said they were going to take away 2 preseason games, and now they've taken away all preseason games. So I think it's July 22nd, the signing period ends for unrestricted free agents to whom they may sign with whoever they want to, whatever's out there on the table. We just don't know. We know the Hall of Fame game that was scheduled for August 6th, Big C, that's been scrapped in Canton, Ohio. Hall of Fame inductions in Canton, Ohio for August 8th, that's been canceled. August 11th, the deadline for players under contract to report to their clubs to earn an accrued season for free agency. And then the final roster cut, they're looking at September 5th, down to 53. But the kickoff is set to open September 10th, the kickoff game to open the regular season. And then September 13th, the first full regular season schedule for the NFL. I'm sure, as people know, things will change. It's just a matter of how and when it changes. But the NFL, they're going to do whatever they can to try to keep people playing football. And I love the game myself, but also when your doctor says take your medications, then most smart people will take their medications. I have a friend that I know, and I'm not giving out names, but he was on blood pressure medication, and I guess he stopped taking them. And you know how people are saying, try this new CBD whatever. So I don't know the situation with that, but I know he said he had suffered a stroke, and he had to refocus on how to use his body again, the left side of his body. And I just say for anybody out there on medications, it's one thing when the doctors say take this medication because scientifically it's proven to help you live a longer life. Every athlete goes through a physical, and every athlete have to pass their physical in order to play a game. And if they don't pass the physical, then they're not allowed to play. I remember even when I was playing college football, we had to go through a physical. We had to pass that physical in order to play. And if you clear the physical, then of course you get the chance to play the game. And so I just hope that athletes, no matter what's happening with the NFL, you have the team doctor and you have your own doctor. Make sure you pay attention to your own doctor. That would make more sense than paying attention to what other people are telling you. National Football League, Players Association, they vote to cancel all preseason games, giving teams, this is what I believe, there was a show called Ripley's Believe It or Not. So when the NFL, the PA, votes to play no preseason games ahead of the 2020 season, you know, TV, the league makes money from TV and commercials. They make money from that. So if you take away the preseason games, first they stripped away 2, and now they're saying no preseason games. And the leadership of the union decides that it would be smart to play preseason games, but after days of everything testing higher for COVID-19 regarding the return of players amid the COVID-19 pandemic, players have decided in favor of a longer runway, if that makes sense, in time for the 2020 NFL regular season to start. I think more people are just starting to listen to their own doctors, and they're watching no matter what somebody tells you in the United States of America, whether you go to Mount Rushmore or not, and you're foolish enough not to wear a mask, because a lot of people, they're willing to die for President Trump. Isn't that something, Big C? They're not kamikaze pilots, Big C, but they have the kamikaze fans that are willing to ignore science, as 102,000 people test positive for COVID-19 in the United States in the last 2 days. And there's been, I mean, we're approaching by the end of this weekend. I hate projecting those kind of numbers, so people can Google whatever the numbers are. But the NFL players, they maintain a desire to trim the preseason schedule from 4 games to 2 in an effort to create a longer ramp period for players. And now they believe that's within their right with the collective bargaining agreement to just set the preseason schedule apart, just cancel it. And they're trying to see, I don't know, maybe they think they're going to have some type of a vaccine before regular season, Big C. I don't know, but I just want to see guys stay safe. I love football as much as the next person, but I still remember, and it won't escape me, my doctor made me pass a physical. Even going back to Pop Warner, I think it was punt, pass, and kick. Even before Pop Warner football, it was punt, pass, and kick, and we had to take a physical. I remember they had to grab us. They had to grab us by the scrotum, Big C. We had to cough. Had to cough 3 times. I said, why do we have to cough when the doctor grabs us by the scrotum? I don't understand that, but I'm not a medical doctor. They all understand why they had to do that. I don't know if it's still the same, but I haven't had that happen since I was in playing football in high school. But it's all fair. I think people change. But it's clear that the union and the league are not on the same page with regard to the length of the preseason. So they could just cancel it. Cancel preseason. Most players are in shape anyway. We know they're going to be players that test positive and then people that get over it. And I think that's what the league is hoping, that people will get over it. But when you think about it, training camps are set to begin late July, as we just talked about earlier. And this week, the NFLPA laid out a potential 4-stage plan and a protocol for a preparation period that would replace the preseason. That's called go to your doctor, common sense. You know, it's funny, Big C, how common sense can make people capitulate. So they're saying they want people to have more time. More time for what? You're already in shape if you're a professional athlete. It's a I won't say 24-hour business, but it surely is a 12-month business. for guys that want to make it. But I just talked about physicals, and when I had to hold, he held my scrotum and said, cough 3 times. And I had to cough 3 times. I don't know if they do that for NFL players, but the physicals, the first stage would be medical physicals, where they tell NFL players, hold your scrotum, cough 3 times. So if you do it the way Joe Rogan, hold your blankety blank scrotum and cough 3 times. You see, that's what the doctors told Joe Rogan for his podcast. So that's going to be the physicals for all players upon returning to camp, which would last 3 days per the NFL's guidelines. And now, following 21 days would make up the second stage, a strength and conditioning program to prepare the players' bodies for a return to physical activity. A lot of guys don't get out of shape anyway, but when you have that combat and you're slamming into other bodies, the NFL and their medical crew is telling people, even though we've had over 100,000 positive COVID-19 cases in the last 2 days, we have 8 Secret Service men, the people that they protect the President of the United States of America. Now they're in quarantine, can't do their part because they're willing to die for the president. Literally. I mean, everybody knows fatalities have been going up. We hope that there's a vaccine or some type of cure. But this is NFL. They're bulletproof, Big C. So they're hoping that they can get guys in condition and get their bodies ready to return to football activity, even in COVID-19. And from there, they'll be moving to a third stage that will resemble the OTAs, in which players would participate in 10 days of non-contact, non-padded practices before eventually shift into a 14-day fourth stage that would focus on what camp traditionally looks like. With potentially 10 total practices and a maximum of 8 padded practices, that total of 48 days would immediately precede Week 1, replacing preseason games with a longer preparation period desired by the NFL Players Association, and none of those guys will be out there playing. They're going to be in an office, Big C, on the phone or in a press box. So, again, everyone go to your own doctor if you have the chance to do that. Every NFL player can go to their own doctor. There are concerns from players on the safety of operating while COVID-19 continues to spread throughout the country in many areas. And now you have Mount Rushmore. I'm sure there'll be some people testing positive for that too, because it tends to follow POTUS. He was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. People tested positive at his gathering. And then he happened to appear down in Arizona. People tested positive after following POTUS. Now he's up at Mount Rushmore. After 1 comes 2. After 2 comes 3. And sometimes it's hard to count past 3, Big C, so a lot of people show up at the POTUS conferences anyway. And then he's going to go back to Washington, D.C. and celebrate the 4th of July, Independence Day. Everybody, just wear a mask if you can. If you don't want to and you're willing to put your life on the line for someone who doesn't care a darn about you, that's your choice. But you still have people at home that love you. Now, I know a lot of players are going to do whatever they have to do. This is a big business. There's a lot of money. With everything that remains to be seen, the situation is developing every day. They continue to wait for a definitive decision on what's going to happen with players as we reach a kickoff date for the start of the NFL. And there's a lot of times when they say if someone has a pre-existing condition and it may be more difficult, and your body weight, body mass is one thing too that people look at. There are a lot of NFL linemen, they're not going to tell you this because they usually if someone's 6'3", they may say they're 6'4", 6'5". If someone's 360 pounds, they may say they're 330 pounds. Just because they do that. I mean, I've seen even Pat Hayton, when he played football, he was about 5'10", but they said he was 6 feet. They do that to make, it's a numbers thing and an ego thing. So we go to one of the most storied franchises in all of sports, maybe the most storied franchise in the universe, the Green Bay Packers, owned by the fans, Lambeau Field. Would you believe the plan? The plan for Lambeau Field is the Packers, they plan for fans to be at Lambeau Field. Unlike the Trump rallies, they're asking for a mandatory mask. And I think it should be mandatory if you're out. Now, for people that go out and exercise, my doctor says use a mask if you're around a cluster of people. You don't need a mask at home. And if you're out exercising, as long as you're not around a cluster of people, it's okay not to have a mask because you don't want to have, you want to have fresh air, and your body needs fresh air. And when you're breathing, you can't breathe in whatever your body's trying to excrete from your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the Green Bay Packers, they're saying, as the NFL works to finalize its policies and procedures with players for training camp for the 2020 season, Green Bay Packers, I won't say America's team, but they're synonymous. Football and Green Bay synonymous around the world, that G on the side of the helmet. But teams have begun to inform fans of upcoming changes for season ticket holders. The Green Bay Packers announced today they're preparing for fans to attend, but noted that capacity would be reduced and social distancing would be practiced, as the team would require facial coverings on all attendees. Now, what's wrong with that? Why would you not want that? Unless you're at a POTUS rally, then a lot of people, they're willing to put their life on the line for POTUS for some reason for the next couple of months. But at this time, the Packers, they're preparing to have fans in attendance with new policies and safety measures that will allow for appropriate social distancing, which will require the stadium seating capacity to be significantly reduced. But that, if we're going to go forward anyway, we know we've seen fans gather at parks. We've seen that in the last couple of weeks at the beaches, even though they're closing the beaches in Florida, closing the beaches in California. Even Texas is requiring, if Texas gets on board, everybody should be on board, Big Z. Even Texas is saying you got to wear a mask. They didn't believe it's science at first, but now that the doctors, remember we talked about having your physical? Well, the doctors are giving them some common sense that people are safer in that community, no matter where you are in Texas, to wear a mask. So now the governor of Texas saying wear a mask. It's amazing how much we need to have that knowledge. So for the Green Bay Packers, Lambeau Field, if they have football back, isn't it amazing? There's something else I want to talk about too, just thinking of Lambeau Field. And Big C, I know we talk a lot about voter obstruction, and especially down in the South, the 13 southern states. But I believe I was hearing that in the city of Atlanta, they're going to use, I don't know if it's Mercedes-Benz Stadium or some other major ballpark that seats, thousands of people, to allow people to come and vote and register to vote. We know, I think they've closed like 41 polling places in the state of Georgia alone. And I may be wrong, but I believe I've heard that. So they're all, and that's in mostly African-American districts. So if people know that POTUS, if you saw his rally today, is all about divisiveness and us versus them, and they're trying to desecrate our heritage. Our heritage. He may as well have had this Confederate flag up there on Mount Rushmore. Those presidents fought to defeat the Confederacy. And to have Lincoln there, who abolished slavery with the 13th Amendment, and then POTUS is talking about maintaining and protecting Confederate statues in the United States of America. Isn't that something? People know the dog whistles. It's all fair in love and war. So whether Lambeau Field has football, that would be great in my opinion. Just like people go to the grocery stores and they have social distancing. People go to the banks. I was just in the bank yesterday, and you have to stay 6 feet apart, so people social distance for that. Everybody's doing whatever they can to stay healthy, and I want to make sure that I do my part with the Big C Sports platform also. Major League Baseball has canceled the All-Star Game of 2020 over COVID-19, as POTUS has another conference with people not wearing masks. Major League Baseball canceled the 2020 All-Star Game because of COVID-19. Isn't it amazing? They're just trying to keep people healthy. The Los Angeles Dodgers, who were the host of this year's game, will instead play at the host of the Midsummer Classic in 2022. Chavez Ravine is a gorgeous ballpark. If you've ever had the chance to go into Los Angeles, you want to see it. It's a beautiful place. And so with the canceling of the 2020 All-Star Game over COVID-19, they didn't cancel it forever. They know it's going to come back. If we'll get a vaccine or some type of medication to treat it, we know it's going to happen. But it was planned for July 14th. It's the first All-Star Game canceled since World War II. Isn't that something? The first All-Star Game canceled since World War II. A week of fan activities around the American and National League exhibition matchup, including the home run derby. We all have seen the home run derby when guys can hit the ball deep. We love that. But it's also going to be on hold this year. The Los Angeles Dodgers were set to host for the first time since 1980. Remember the Olympics in 84? A lot of things were good happening in Los Angeles, from the Raiders winning the Super Bowl down there, the Dodgers winning the World Series in 88. Of course, the Lakers always competing for championships. The 80s were good in Los Angeles. But now they've canceled the 2020 All-Star Game, but it will be back in 2022 at Chavez Ravine. So we know that they're only doing it to keep people safe. And I know when you think about it, Vin Scully, man, a whole lifetime Vin Scully broadcasting games for the Dodgers down in Chavez Ravine. Tommy Lasorda eating up all the pasta in Los Angeles so people couldn't get pasta coming in for the All-Star weekend. Tommy Lasorda ate it all. he ate all the pasta down in Los Angeles so people couldn't get pasta. The great Tommy Lasorda doing his thing. But they'll have to wait for 2022 to get that done. And when I think about baseball, last month both sides agreed to have opening day July 23rd and 24th, with players resuming training at the beginning of the month. But Major League Baseball recently introduced new rules to stem the spread of COVID-19 among players, including a ban on spitting. How are you going to play baseball if you can't spit? That's part of the fun going to the games. Guys spitting, what do they call it? Beef jerky, sunflower seeds, snuff, tobacco, bubble gum. If you can't spit at a baseball game, why even have the game? That's like kissing someone and you can't get your lips wet, Big C. That doesn't make any sense. You ever kiss someone and not get your lips wet, Big C? It's the same thing they try to do to baseball. It's not the same, Big C. First played in 1933, the All-Star Game. It's been an annual event, except for 1945 wartime travel restrictions. And I know if you think about 2021, it's set to be played down in Atlanta at the Braves ballpark, the beautiful ballpark down in Atlanta. So baseball is being affected by COVID-19, as well as a lot of things are being affected. But my goodness, I still want to give out, I think this, to me, even saying it seems a bit foolish, but I want to send out my thoughts and prayers to people and their family members dealing with anything that has to deal with COVID-19. I want to do that because I believe that prayer works. I know it doesn't work for everything, and some people are agnostic, some people are atheists, but I do know there are times in my life when all I had was prayer, and I felt that God opened his eyes and helped me when sometimes people that you believe are going to help you, they don't. They just got their own motives or whatever they're doing. But God has always been a part of my life, and I want to pray and ask anyone going through that with COVID-19 to just pray. Pray for loved ones, pray for people going through it. A friend of mine told me that her husband, her daughter, and her daughter's friend tested positive for COVID-19. She's a runner. She's in great shape. So it's not about someone being, out of shape or obese. It happens to anybody. We've just had a fatality for a young child. I believe it's on the East Coast, 10 or 11-year-old. But I don't know the whole complications behind it. But I still want to offer prayers, thoughts, and prayers for people who are dealing with COVID-19. We'll take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. When we come back, we're going to talk more about baseball. Let's play ball. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google, anywhere in the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports podcast. I really love that, coming off this beautiful, I guess you could say 4th of July Eve. It's 4th of July Eve, Big C. I can't wait to see some fireworks. I'm not going to be out among a crowd, but there'll be fireworks. I love the fireworks displays that happen in this country. Major League Baseball, let's play ball. 31 baseball players and 7 staff. They joined POTUS, and many people who go to his rallies have tested positive for COVID-19. Isn't that something? 31 Major League Baseball players and 7 staff members tested positive for COVID-19 during the intake for the resumption of training. Major League Baseball and the Players Association announced the results today. as teams resumed workouts for the first time since COVID-19 interrupted spring training. And I believe that was March 12th or 11th. 2 weeks before the season was to start, opening day has been reset for July 23rd, the latest in baseball history. Positive tests occurred among 19 of 30 teams, and they haven't even played the game yet. This is occurring without teams getting on airplanes and flying across the country to another team's ballpark and being in a hotel and interacting with people on the way. And no one's even thrown on the first pitch, Big C. No one's even taken a swing of the bat. Hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run! We know we missed that part of baseball. Everybody's cheering, but they're not going to have fans in the stands. So when you think about this, remember I opened the show talking about taking a physical, and doctors grabbing me by the scrotum and saying, cough 3 times. And I had to cough 3 times, and they said, okay, you're good to play. I don't know how they could tell by coughing 3 times and holding my scrotum, Big C, but hey, I'm not a doctor. So what do I know, Big C? But I think it's different now. But the positive test occurred among 19 of 30 teams. According to the results of the samples, they were sent to the Sports Medicine Research and Testing Laboratory in South Jordan, Utah. There were 3,185 samples collected and tested through the first week of intake testing. That's the first week. Not even a game being played, but players are already dealing with what happens when you're out there and the pathogens are spreading just like cigarette smoke, as my doctor told me. So with 31 players, 7 staff testing positive for COVID-19, as more people start to interact, I know there'll be more. And it's as if, what's it going to take for people to say, you know what? Maybe just maybe, Big C. Maybe that rattlesnake before it bites, it always rattles. And then only a knucklehead would keep walking up and like, what's that rattling noise coming out of this cave, Big C? I can understand, it's a rattling noise. And then they get bit and then they go, oh my God, it's a snake. But I know that COVID-19 is rattling. It's been rattling for the tune of 8 Secret Service agents. It's rattled to the tune of 31 baseball players and 7 staff. It's rattled to people that went to the COVID-19 rally that POTUS had in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I was holding another COVID-19 rally in front of Mount Rushmore. Baseball, Mexico, Poquito cancels baseball season, the marathon, because of the pandemic. Isn't that something? I mean, I love baseball. I've been playing it since I was a little boy. But it's amazing, without sounding jingoistic at all, but Mexico City, they're putting more emphasis on safety than the United States of America. For the first time in almost a century. For you good old boys down south that carry the Confederate flag, that means 100 years. just to help you out a little bit. For the first time in almost a century, Mexico has canceled its professional baseball season. The Mexican Baseball League announced Wednesday. And on the same day, organizers announced the cancellation of the Mexico City Tercel Marathon 2020, which had been scheduled for August 30th, citing the safety of participants and the spectators. Runners had registered for the marathon. They'll be able to compete in 2021 or get a refund. So the Mexican Baseball League said it regretted the cancellation. You ever regret something, Big C? Sometimes you regret when you hear the rattlesnake rattling and you go into the cave anyway. Like, what is that noise? Where's it coming from? It's funny how people regret things. But Mexico, the Mexican Baseball League said it regretted the cancellation of 2020. What's to regret by keeping people safe? Now, if POTUS says he regrets having those rallies in Tulsa, and when he was in Arizona at a church where his Secret Service got sick, people in Tulsa got sick, if he said he regretted going to Mount Rushmore with no social distancing, you regret things when you feel sorry that it happened, but don't feel regretful that you're saving lives. That's nothing to feel regretful about. But noting the first time in 95 years, a whole season has been canceled, and the summer season has been scheduled to start August 7th, but the 16-team owners decided they could not guarantee the safety of fans and players because they're trusting science. Like the doctor that grabbed me by the scrotum and said, cough 3 times. I coughed 3 times. I may have coughed more than 3 times. But that's how they gave the physicals back in the day, along with blood pressure and other things. I mean, life is funny. But we got to be willing to enjoy the life that we have, because if we don't, then what's it all for? I just believe in hoping that baseball in the United States will look at what they're doing in Mexico. I guess POTUS didn't build that wall for the Brown Menace, right, Big C? POTUS, think about it. POTUS tried to build a wall to keep out the Brown Menace. And the people in Mexico are doing more to protect their own people, their own citizens, at least in baseball, than POTUS is willing to do for the people that want to go to his rallies. Isn't that something? He told Americans that they're sending their worst. They're rapists, they're murderers, they're selling felons, gangsters. Isn't that something? He told them that. He told them that in the meetings, and now Mexico's doing what it can to keep people safe. And POTUS is telling predominantly white Americans to go to his rallies and don't wear a mask and don't social distance. Isn't that something? Who's keeping who safe? So Mexico baseball takes much more of the money from tickets and refreshments at the stadiums. They do not have a large broadcast income like the soccer teams have. But they're doing more to keep people safe than the United States is doing in Major League Baseball, and a lot more than what POTUS is doing at his rallies. But again, progress comes, and progress takes time. It all takes time, Big C. I want to touch on something when it comes to progress, because not everybody believes in what I'm going to say, but progress is something that happens over time. It takes time. Without progress, then we're all stuck in the mud, and nobody wants to be stuck in the mud. It's not a good feeling to be stuck in the mud, Big C. But I remember growing up in California, and I remember there were several teams called the Redskins. I told you just the other day that I think, pejoratively speaking, white Americans have done more to avoid death and lose money than almost. They haven't marched for equality. That hasn't deterred them trying to shame people because they don't believe in equality. That hasn't shamed people. It's the fear of death, like getting out of the Vietnam War or losing money. So Washington Redskins, they will now change their mascot's name from the Redskins, unless there's a change that happens in the middle of the night, Big C, that we don't know about. So Daniel Snyder, they're going to change the name of the Washington Redskins. Isn't that something? There's a lot of change coming in the Washington, D.C. area this year. The change is going to come. The Redskins are changing their mascot name from the Redskins. They're still up in the air. So they're about to kick POTUS out of the White House. We know that's going to happen in November. And he will not fight to keep the name of the Redskins the same way he fought to keep the Confederate flag, Big C. He wants to keep the Confederate flag and Confederate statues. Listen to his dog whistles tonight if you get the chance to see it at Mount Rushmore. But the Washington Redskins, now I understand it's up for grabs. Are they going to change the Kansas City Chiefs? How about the Florida State Seminoles? I don't know. The Cleveland Indians. If it's offensive, then people can get together and talk about it. But Snyder's not changing because he had an epiphany. He's changing because at FedEx Field, people are just saying they're going to pull out their sponsorship money. I told you it's the money, not the epiphany, that made him change. When someone said, hey, I know you're a billionaire, you're going to lose more money if you don't change. He changed, Big C. Isn't that something? People change when you take away their money. The effort to get Washington's professional football team. Remember, the Washington Bullets changed to the Washington Wizards. They changed it because of some of the violence going on around the D.C. area. But the effort to get Washington's professional football team to change its name, it continues. So today, this morning, owner Daniel Snyder, that nobody really likes, I don't know why they don't like him, he's such a nice man, Big C. He fought changing that name for many, many years. I'll not tolerate anyone changing the name Redskins. So he said, now that someone decided to take his money away, he said, okay, I'll change. So Daniel Snyder, he opened up the floor for an official review of the name because they threatened to take his money. If only they had known that a long time ago. But following the news on Thursday that federal officials informed the team owner Snyder that he must change the name from Redskins if he wants to relocate the site of RFK Stadium. Think about that. Later in the day, FedEx released a statement indicating that it had asked the team in Washington to change its name. According to a report, FedEx was among a group of corporations, including Nike and PepsiCo, whose investors wrote them requesting that by the end that they're going to end their relationship with the Washington Redskins, Big C, unless the team changes its name. I thought he was a decent man. It's about losing money. Come on, man. Come on, man. What's the athlete that says, come on, man? When the FedEx got involved, and then Nike Corporation and PepsiCo said they're going to take money out of his pocket, then he changed. It's amazing how men change. You want to get at a white man, threaten him with death or losing money. Pejoratively speaking, not everybody's that way, but it seems like a lot of those guys are. So their letters to FedEx, Nike, and PepsiCo were from 87 investment firms and shareholders with a collective worth of $6. Yeah, you don't believe that. Collective worth of $620 billion. $620 billion? God, I want $620 billion. That would make me change my name, Big C. Who wouldn't change their name for $620 billion, Big C? I thought Daniel Snyder was a good man. He could be bought for $620 billion. Can you believe that? What about his scruples, Big C? Everything's for sale. I used to know a madam when I was a young boy, and some of the guys, after they went and did that, whatever they went to church, they always went by the madam's house so that they can get some relaxation, Big C, right? Holier than thou, but the madam sent her kids to school by a lot of older men going by doing their things. $620 billion. Who would change their name for $600 billion? I might change my name for $600 billion, not $620 billion. That's a lot of money, but it's going to change the name Redskins because of $620 billion is the net worth of the investment firms. I tell you, if you wanna get people to change, threaten to take away $620 billion, Big C. That gets people to change in a hurry. I thought Snyder would ban. So Snyder previously stated that I would never change the name of this team. I would never change it. That's what he said, Big C. I would never change the name of the Washington Redskins. But he's changed. He's changed it now. Oh man. If it wasn't true, it'd be even more funny. Oh, God. Snyder has previously said that he would never change the name of the team, but he also recently budged just a bit by renaming the lower bowl of FedEx Field. The lower bowl had been named after longtime owner George Preston Marshall, whose statue was removed from the outside of RFK Stadium last month. Marshall is one who changed the team's name from Braves to Redskins, and who both resisted the integration of the team, and stated that he was proud that his franchise was the last one to be integrated. Isn't that something? All life came from Africa. When anyone is proud of being racist or bigoted, they just don't know where all life came from. The dominant gene is the dark gene, the recessive gene is the white gene. The dominant gene can reproduce the recessive gene, but the recessive gene cannot reproduce the dominant gene. That's Mendel. And Dr. Leakey told us that all life came from the African continent. So when you have a bigot, that just means they're dumb. Scientifically, they can't prove any superiority over anything. It's just been about money. That's why I'm calling for H.R. 40, for Black Americans to get the same reparations that Germany and Western Europe got from Harry Truman. Give them hell, Harry! We didn't mean it to the black society. Harry couldn't see straight, so he said, when they said, give them hell, Harry! But he decided not to let African Americans participate in the GI Bill, all that stuff, man. There's been a lot of garbage going on in our country, and POTUS is still a believer. POTUS hated that they took down that statue of George Preston Marshall. Isn't that something? Just like they're about to take the name plaque of Donald Trump out of the White House pretty soon too. If people vote, mail in your ballots, so when the grid goes down the day of the election, then you won't say, well, I didn't know. I didn't know about it. Yeah, you got to mail in your ballots, people. So with political and financial pressure now being applied, Snyder is capitulating. He breaks and does indeed decide to change the team's name. Yes, $620 billion would allow a lot of people to change their own names, Big C. It's just amazing. I love this country, but there's some people who are so crooked that it just takes taking their money away from them, or their freedom, like the fear of death or the fear of money. It changes things, Big C. It changes things so much, and I appreciate the sports world being a part of this change. Everybody's trying to change for the better. For human decency, we all want to keep hope alive. I think Jesse Jackson told us that. Keep hope alive, keep hope alive. So with the change of the Washington Redskins, you know what else is changing? Black Lives Matter, sports, politics, Pope Francis, and undeniable, unprecedented, egalitarian white support around the world from Africa to the Vatican. Except for the Southern Confederate flag toters and POTUS with his speech today at Mount Rushmore, Big C. May lightning strike them, Big C. It's all fair love of war. Yeah, the things are changing, except for the Southern Confederate flag toters and some of the rhetoric from POTUS. The underclass of society still embraces Strom Thurmond, Governor George Wallace, and Senator Mitch McConnell. That ideology, some of the dog whistles, the Confederate statues and flags that POTUS loves on his mantle. Isn't that something? President Trump's administration is almost like the men on Mount Rushmore. They're stone-faced, but his whole cabinet, for the most part, I mean, Surgeon General Jerome Adams, he won't even say, because they've got to him, he won't even say that masks are mandatory. They were just calling for that about a month ago. The POTUS said, listen, boy, you want to stay Surgeon General? You better get on board with it. You know what I do to people that are close to me. And then if you also look at the Housing and HUD Secretary, you know, Carson's not saying anything other than, hey, well, the president will come around to it eventually. Black Lives Matter, sports, politics, Pope Francis, it's undeniable. People all over the world are standing up to do the right thing. As I was talking to a pastor friend, maybe Jesus is coming back, Big C. People want to atone before Jesus comes back. But I always have thought, since I was growing up, I didn't need Black Lives Matter to teach me this. I learned it from my parents. You got to treat people the way that you want to be treated. At some point in time, when you know your history, we're all the human race. But some of us have been treated differently. I've heard of stories growing up where there were some parents that would have two children. One child, they gave the best education, private schooling, gave them money, like a nice allowance, gave them love and hugs and kisses, and told them how wonderful, how beautiful they are, how successful, how intelligent they are. You're going to be great in life. You're so wonderful. Anything you want, God is going to bless you. Just be a good person and work hard. And then from the same loins, they told the other child, you're despicable, you're evil, you're mean, you're never going to be nothing. We're not giving you an allowance. I'm going to cut you out of the will. You're ugly, you're mean, you're blah, 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 blah. From the same seed. Any wonder which one of those children is going to grow up with a better complex? What if the children they said they were ugly and mean and you're not worth anything, what if that was white? What if scientists that said the dark gene that produces black people is more dominant than the white gene that produces white people? And that the recessive gene is ugly and unattractive and unworthy of God's grace and blessings? Could you imagine that? Because based on science, that's a scientific truth. It's amazing that Dr. Mendel and Dr. Leakey, they focus on science and not some type of social hatred. Because all people come from the same source. The universe! Where we've all been dealt a different way of being treated, from the Middle Passage all the way to Jim Crow and now the Black Lives Matter movement, and then the stuff that POTUS called on today at Mount Rushmore. So why did Black Lives Matter protest attract more white people all over the world at unprecedented numbers, even from the Vatican? Where did all the white people come from that seem to have a sense of fairness and decency? The killing of George Floyd has inspired an outpouring of white empathy in a way that the shootings of Trayvon Martin, Walter Scott, or Tamir Rice, just to name a few, did not. Even through segregation. Governor Wallace, segregation now, segregation forever. Just like the guy who owned the Redskins, Snyder said I'll never change the name until some corporation decided to take away some money. Nice capitulating. But although white Americans, for the most part, not a monolithic group, but for the most part have been part of the black freedom struggle since the days of the Underground Railroad with Harriet Tubman, and their current participation is unlike anything we've ever seen. All over the world, protests in hundreds of cities. Think about this. Not for POTUS, against POTUS. Protests in hundreds of cities, even in the Vatican, in every state, have had large and sometimes majority white crowds. White women made themselves human shields to protect black protesters. White superstar athletes, from NFL to NBA, Major League Baseball, soccer, track and field, NASCAR, they've shown support. Even Utah's 47% Senator Mitt Romney joined the cause. Apple committed $100 million to a racial justice fund. The NFL increased its commitment to $250 million. Museums and corporations supported protests. Spontaneous reparations flowed. Isn't that something? More than ever before the movement that began with Martin Luther King in the 60s. White Americans are chanting and even screaming Black Lives Matter. I live in a neighborhood, really nice neighborhood, beautiful lake, and there are people writing Black Lives Matter in the street. Those are white kids doing that. Some of the neighbors sprayed it the next day. They sprayed it from in front of the house the next day, Big C. But it's all fair and level. But they sprayed it, Big C, with a water hose, like the days of Governor Wallace. The water hose wasn't as strong as the water hose that Governor Wallace was spraying, but they sprayed it out of the street. But the young white kids wrote Black Lives Matter in the street. Some of their older parents sprayed it out. So, life's funny, man. But the pendulum has swung so far that the majority of decent white people, like the ones that Pope Francis called on, he wasn't praying to the knuckleheads. He wasn't praying to the racists. He wasn't praying to those guys who were just intellectually vapid, are the ones that go to a POTUS rally and won't even protect the people they love by not wearing a mask, taking it back to their grandparents. Just like in Tulsa, just like in Arizona. Same thing happened in Mount Rushmore. But the pendulum has swung. Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, Governor Wallace, Strom Thurmond, it's like the most decent white Americans, they have antipathy for that hatred. I guess they've seen the promised land. They've seen it, Big C. Equality, liberty, and justice for all. So you just got to think about it. Everybody has their own time to have an awakening. From celebrities to Hollywood, sports athletes, politicians, Thurgood Marshall, W.E.B. Du Bois. There's been so many people, Frederick Douglass, that have tried to have equality in our country. People may not like this, but Malcolm X preached equality. But he had more force behind his preaching. Dr. King was more a peaceful man. Gandhi. I mean, so many people all over the world, if they're just asking for equality and justice and not revenge, it's so important that our society go forward and do the right thing. We shall overcome. When Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years because of apartheid in South Africa, when he got out, there was a lot of white people that thought that he was going to cause some type of an uprising and try to end the lives of many white oppressors. But he called for peace. Isn't that something? That's a godly feature. Like Christ said, he who is without sin cast the first stone. So I'm emboldened by the younger group of white Americans and all over the world, whether they're Britain, whether they're from British, whether they're German backgrounds, whether they're in Asia, whether they're in Australia. We've seen good and bad in everybody all over this world. But that's something that even Pope Francis noticed. Pope Francis. So you think about this. The unprecedented white response to two civil rights veterans, Mary Frances Berry, a University of Pennsylvania professor and author of History Teaches Us to Resist, is the former chair of the United States Commission on Civil Rights, Michael Steinberg, a professor at the University of Michigan Law School and the director of its civil rights legislation, as we're trying to get young black athletes to go down and play sports. Come on, boy. Come and dribble. Don't you want to play football? Don't you really want to play baseball? Well, don't worry about COVID-19. You don't need a mask. Just follow POTUS. Civil rights legislation initiative brought dozens of civil rights in police misconduct cases in 22 years with the American Civil Liberties Union. Isn't that something? I think people should listen to what Pope Francis talked about before. Right now, about a month after Floyd was murdered, much of the white participation, be it younger, is more symbolic than strategic. Even though some of the support can feel belated or awkward, their engagement is what many have long sought. The masses of white people standing in unity for liberty and justice for all, confirming humanity. If Jesus is coming back, as some of my pastors are saying, that's why a lot of people are changing. It's an internal thing. But it shouldn't matter what color you are. Imagine if you're a bigot, and you know you're a bigot. And Christ says that not everyone who professes that they cast out devils and said, Jesus, I love you, accepted Christ, will get into heaven. Okay, if you believe in that. But imagine if you know that you're a bigot, and you know that you're a sexist, and you know that you're a whatever you are. Me included. We got to make our hearts right. And I feel that it's not just the United States. That even white Americans that have all the privilege that was bestowed upon them through colonialism and imperialism and slavery and all the wealth that was bequeathed on to future generations, getting a bank loan, living where you want to live, not dealing with the criminal justice system, not dealing with police brutality. When you have opioid addictions, people go to clinics for counseling and treatment as opposed to prison. They don't have that. They don't have that. But when you think about demonstrating in their privilege, we're shocked with what happened to George Floyd, because they imagine if a little white man or a little white child or white woman had someone hold a knee on their neck for 8 minutes and 48 seconds and murder that person in broad daylight so the whole universe could see, that would make some of them sick to their stomach. That's how we ended the war in Vietnam. People they started seeing their kids brought home in body bags. And they decided that they wanted to say enough's enough, because more people are intermarrying. Diversity and equity and inclusion training is what police officers need. Racial sensitivity training, just like gender sensitivity training. Cameras worn by officers, they need that. We need to get out the bad police officers. They're not bad apples. Apples don't shoot people. They don't chokehold people either. And when President says when you arrest them, rough them up, that garbage has to go too. And God knows that's true. And every decent person that votes knows that's true. When the president says sick them with vicious dogs and ominous weapons, he's talking about white kids. Don't get it twisted. The people going to his rally getting sick, those are white people. Bringing it back to their parents and grandparents. So yes, life is changing for the better. And we got to all participate in it. I just believe that. NBA basketball, Indiana Pacers, Victor Oladipo, he's not going to go to the bubble in Orlando, says because of, I guess he's trying to recover from an injury. I think maybe he's talking to his doctor more than a lot of people give him credit for. People got to do that. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. I love so many things about our great country. The 4th of July is here. What it means to Americans. If I were president, watch out, Trump. If I were president, I'd say, yeah, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings right now. But if I were president of the United States, I would really advocate for liberty and justice for all citizens. I would make health care a guarantee, just like the members of Congress. If Senator Mitch McConnell can have health care, free health care, everybody should have health care. How is he still standing with all that hatred running through his veins, Big C? I would push for income equality for men and women. I would push for free education. Equal rights for all people. I would change the criminal justice system to require fairness for all people. I would get rid of bad actors in the criminal justice system. I would want to make sure that all people can feel like they can be a part of this country. I love sports. I would make sure athletes are safe instead of bringing people back. That's important. I want to give out this message that I always give. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States. And I think if we can all look at people that way and live that way and treat people fair, that would make life better for everybody. It doesn't matter what color you are. I know we want to see football and basketball and baseball. We want to see a lot of those things come back. I love that I have the chance to do the Big C Sports Show. I love the fact that Pope Francis speaks a lot like Big C Sports has been speaking lately about liberty and justice for all. The 4th of July, also known as the Independence Day, has been a federal holiday in the United States since 1941. But the tradition of Independence Day celebration goes back to the 18th century and the American Revolution. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence, and 2 days later, delegates from the 13 colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence, a historic document drafted by Thomas Jefferson. From 1776 to the present day, July 4th has been celebrated as the birth of America's independence, with festivities ranging from fireworks, parades, concerts, get-togethers, and more family gatherings, barbecues. 4th of July 2020 is a little bit different. We got to wish people a lot of health and wealth and wisdom. I hope everyone can stay safe. And make sure you vote. No matter what you're hearing, you got to get out and vote. Yes, we got to get out and vote. Yes, Black Lives Matter. I appreciate the message of the Pope. I appreciate all good people. I want everyone to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, to be blessed and highly favored. And I hope that God will bless this great country and this great world, this great earth. All people. I hope everybody going through something can get some help from God. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network. Keep doing that. I love saying that. As I say, Big C. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe? I know you're going to have a healthy, wealthy 4th of July with the barbecue smoke in the pits and all the collard greens you're going to eat and the pecan pie, peach cobbler, all that good stuff. You can have it too every Monday through Friday when you follow Big C Sports. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.